everybody, it's Alyssa. Welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, I am going to be teaching you guys how to make guinea pig pee pads. But before we get started with today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, PetCube. I absolutely love PetCube. They have sponsored me before with their really awesome pet cams that they have on their website. But today I'm actually showing you guys something completely different, which I think is very important to have in your lives, because I know a lot of you guys have dogs and cats in your life. Today I'm going to be talking about the Emergency Fund by PetCube. The Emergency Fund by PetCube is a subscription service that covers up to $3,000 worth of emergency cases and does not discriminate against pre-existing conditions like a lot of pet insurances do, unfortunately. And it includes a 24/7 customer service pet line chat. It covers up to 6 pets in one subscription, which is only $29 a month. Guys, like, I have this myself, $29 a month for up to 6 dogs or cats, which I do have. I have 5. I have 3 cats and 2 dogs, and you never know what type of emergency you could have with them. Having this as a backup plan for an emergency is so smart. So it covers vet consultations and it covers emergencies. It is not a pet insurance, it is a pet insurance alternative for people who don't really like doing insurance. And you're covered up to $3,000 in emergency bills for a year. It is currently only accessible for the US only, and it's accessible through the PetCube website, which I will put down below. You could start using the fund from the 15th day after you subscribe to it. If you need to use your emergency fund, you just start a chat on the website with the customer service chat line. To use the emergency fund, you need to start a chat with the vet that is eligible for the coverage. After all the treatment is done, your vet contacts the PetCube emergency fund and it's paid through by them during that time. And they pay directly to your pet clinic, which I think is just awesome. This is a lot better than using insurance, because most insurances for pets you have to pay out of pocket while the emergency is happening and then you get reimbursed. They also don't cover pre-existing conditions, and there's so many different rules that they have. So having this emergency fund is a lot nicer because you don't have to worry about all these little rules that they have. So if you guys are interested in checking out this emergency fund for yourself, right now it is currently only for dogs and cats. So if it's something that you want to look into, I will put my promo code down below with the link to the website. And if you click the link down below, you get 50% off your first 2 months, which is such a steal if you have a lot of dogs and cats. 50% off your first 2 months. Check out my promo code, check out my link down below if you guys are interested in getting some emergency fund coverage for your pets. Thank you so much, PetCube, for sponsoring this video. And let's go ahead and get into it. This is a new series that I'm going to be starting on my channel where I teach you guys how to make stuff for your guinea pigs. I'm going to try to be as beginner friendly as possible, and I'm just going to teach you guys. I think it is really important when you own guinea pigs to kind of learn how to make some stuff at home, especially with the way the economy is getting nowadays. It is very, very expensive to buy pee pads and liners, and I totally get it. As someone who owns a small business myself, I totally understand when people say that they can't afford to buy from me, and I get it. Like, it doesn't upset me at all. I totally understand. So I figured I would show some of you guys who want to have a cheaper alternative how to make these at home, because in the long run, it is actually more inexpensive to buy the items yourself and make it at home. The initial startup will probably be more expensive if you don't have a sewing machine, because you will have to purchase a sewing machine, which can be a little expensive. But after that, like buying the materials and everything, it's a lot cheaper than just buying like 1 or 2 liners or pee pads from like Etsy or from Guinea Tad per se. I still say support small businesses if you can. I do make these pee pads and picky portals and stuff over on my website, which I'll put the link for it down below if you guys want to purchase from me. But I'm going to show you guys exactly how I make them. No gatekeeping here. This is just how I do them. You can do them any way that is easier for you. This is just the easiest way for me. So here is an example. This is what I'm going to be showing you guys how to do today. This is a 14-inch by 14-inch pee pad. You can use these in guinea pig cages underneath water bottles. You can do them near litter areas. You can do them in areas where they sleep, just areas where guinea pigs tend to pee and poop a lot more. You can put this in the area, and then to clean, all you have to do is pick it up, dump it in the trash can, and if it's not wet, then you can put it back in the cage, or you can just replace it and wash it, and it's just super easy. This is a pea pad I made 2 years ago. Like literally 2 years ago. It is held up perfectly. There's a bunch of hair on the back, so apologies for that. It is used by guinea pigs, but as you can see, it is still perfectly sturdy. And none of the pea pads or liners that I have ever made since I've started making them have fallen apart. So they are very sturdy. They last a long time. Like I said, I've been washing these for 2 years and they're still in perfect condition. Here is another one that I made 2 years ago. This one is a 2x1, but it is the same process as making a 14x14. So as you can see, this one's a little bit thinner, but this is one I made 2 years ago, and this is one that I made with cheaper fabric from Walmart, which I will talk to you guys about. So here's just some examples of what I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make today. And now let's go ahead and get into the materials that you need. Getting started with materials, of course, the most expensive material that you're going to need is some type of sewing machine. This is the Singer heavy duty sewing machine. You're going to need some type of heavy duty sewing machine. I bought the cheaper Singer when I first started, the $100 one, and it just could not handle fleece. So I recommend trying to spend a little bit more. At the time when I bought this 2 years ago, this was $200. I got it from Walmart, and it works very well for the projects that I do. But when you use thick fabrics like fleece, you're going to have a sewing machine that can handle that. And the cheaper ones typically can't. So just keep that in mind. You may have to spend a little bit of a pretty penny to get a decent sewing machine, but it is worth the money. I've been using this for 2 years straight. It's never run down on me, you know, knock on wood. But yeah, this was $200 at Walmart. There are way better ones out there. This is just the one that I use. So love this thing, my little beauty. I put little stickers on it and everything. The next thing you're going to need is some fabric scissors. I recommend the Fiskars brand. I have bought so many different types of fabric scissors from Amazon, and they all are marketed towards cutting fabric, and the only scissors that I have been able to find that cut through fleece flawlessly is this brand right here. They are a little bit more expensive. I think they're like $20 at Michael's. I think they're cheaper on Amazon. They really do work and they really do last. I don't have to keep replacing my scissors like every couple of projects, so really love these. Next, you're going to need some type of measuring tape. I personally like to use the measuring tapes that come in like a toolbox, but I can't find mine anywhere. I have absolutely no idea where I put it. So you're going to need this to measure stuff and also to make your template. So speaking of template, this is an example of a template. You can make a template with fabric, or you can make a template with paper. This is just some Christmas wrapping paper. Super cheap. You can get it from the Dollar Tree, or you probably have it sitting around somewhere. This is the template that I made for my 14x14 inch pea pads. So I'll go over that in a little bit with you guys, but you're gonna need some type of template. You're going to need heavy duty needles. So here are the ones that I use. I just buy them in a huge pack on Amazon because when you're sewing fleece, you're most likely going to break needles, and you also need to replace your needles after every couple of projects because the needles will dull down very quickly. I break needles like crazy, especially when I'm making my picky portals. So the heavier duty needles are the best ones to use because you are using very thick fabric. Next, you're going to need some type of clips like this. I prefer the clips. I really love these, and I'll put a link for all of the items that I use down below. Or pins like this, just to pin your fabric and everything together. You're going to need something like this. It'll just make your life so much easier. I got all of these from Amazon. Like I said, I'll put the links down below. Next, you're going to need fabric. As you can see, this is my mess pile of fabric here. You're going to need fleece. So fleece fabric wicks very easily, and if you don't know what wicking means, I get this question quite often, is what does it mean to wick your project or your fleece? And wicking is basically the process of making the top layer and the bottom layer of your pea pads absorbable. So I'm gonna go over it with you guys a little bit more, but basically you can either wash your fleece a couple times before you start making your pea pads, or you can wash it afterwards. I always wash it afterwards just because that's my preference. I like it all being together before I start washing it. But you basically need to wash your fleece to the point where water can go through the fabric. So when your guinea pigs pee on it, it goes through the fabric instead of sitting on top and giving your guinea pigs ammonia burn or some type of infection on their feet from having to lay in their own pee. I buy all of my fleece from Joann's. It is a little bit more expensive on Joann's website. They do often have sales where they'll have some fleece for like $2 to $3 a yard, which is really nice. You can get fleece from Walmart. When I first started making them, I would buy just a yard of fleece from Walmart for a couple of dollars. And it was just like regular blizzard fleece. The front and back of this Nightmare Before Christmas pea pad here, this was all Walmart fleece. And as you can see, I mean, it's held up really well. I only have one layer of U-Haul padding in it, so that's why it's so thin. But this was all Walmart fleece, and it is held up just as well as the Joann's. So there are a couple different fleeces that I recommend. You can either do blizzard fleece, which is a little bit cheaper, it's a little bit rougher, or you can get anti-pill fleece, which is really fluffy, really soft, but it is a lot more expensive. I prefer anti-pill. It lasts longer, it's thicker, it's softer. It just is a really nice fleece. So it may be hard to tell, but this is anti-pill fleece from Joann's. And I got this when it was on sale for like $2 to $3 a yard, which is great. And this is the fabric that I'm going to be making a pea pad out of today. And the pea pad that I'm making in this video will be included in my 50,000 subscriber giveaway that is coming very soon. And then you may not even be able to tell the difference, but this is blizzard fleece, this really pretty strawberry fabric. So you may not be able to tell the quality difference on camera, but you can kind of tell that this one's just a little bit softer and fluffier, and this one is just a little more rough. But either way, they're still perfect fabrics to use. So you're going to need a top fabric for the top of the project, and then you're going to need a bottom fabric. You can use the same for top and bottom, or you can use a solid on the back. I'm going to be using my black fleece up there for the back of the project. And then lastly, you are going to need U-Haul or cotton batting. This is what makes your pea pad a pea pad. This is what absorbs the pea inside of the pea pad. So your guinea pig will pee through the top of the fleece, it'll absorb down into this pad right here, and then that is what will keep the area clean until you wash it. You can get U-Haul pads on Amazon. You can get them in like a big 6-pack for like $40. I mean, that lasts a really long time. If you're just one person making stuff for your guinea pigs, you probably don't need to buy a 6-pack. But for someone like me who makes stuff for my little small business, I buy the 6-pack and it lasts me through like probably 20 pea pads or something like that, probably more. So yeah, you can just get this from Amazon. I'll put the link for the one I buy down below. Or if you're in the UK, I think in the UK you don't have U-Haul pads. You can use cotton batting. You just need some type of absorbable material on the inside of the pea pad, because otherwise then it would just be some fleece that is sitting in your cage and it's not really doing anything other than just being pretty. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. Like I said, I'm trying to dumb it all down for you guys to make it as easy as possible. So now that we have done that, let me go ahead and get started. All right, to get started, you're going to want to make your template. I have already made it, obviously, so I don't need to. But to make your template, you're basically just going to take your measuring tape or your tape measure, and you're going to measure out what size you want your pea pad to be. So mine is 14" by 14". So I cut this template into a 16" by 16" square. What you're gonna want to do is add a couple of inches on each side of your template, because when you're sewing the project, you're going to want to make up for those extra inches, because if you cut out exactly a 14 by 14 and you're sewing, you're gonna end up with like a 12 by 12 pea pad instead of a 14 by 14 like you would want. So just add like 2 or 3 inches on each side, add some inches to it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. So this is a 16" by 16" square. You'll just cut it out in some wrapping paper or fabric and use this as your template to make everything the same size. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to lay out your fabric. Some people They do this where they use like a rotary cutter and they have a mat and everything. I don't have a big enough table to use a rotary cutter and I don't want to destroy my floors, so I just use plain old scissors. Does it make my life harder? Yes, but for beginners, it's probably just easier to do it this way as well, so that's why I'm going to show you guys this way. So lay out your fabric as smooth as you can lay it out. Fleece is very stretchy, so try your best to lay it out as smooth as you can. And then you're going to take your template and you are just going to lay your template over the fleece, and then take your little pins and you're just going to pin it into the fabric. Like I said, some people do this differently. This is just how I do it. I'd be making extra steps for myself, quite possibly, but this is how I do it. So I'm just pinning it to the fabric here. All right, so now we know it won't go anywhere. And then you're going to take your scissors and you're just going to carefully cut out the square. Okay, so now we cut out our top bit so we can take out the little pins. And then from this point forward, what I do is I just toss over this template to the side, and then I use this as my template just because it's a lot easier and it lays down flatter. So this is my new template. We have a 16-inch by 16-inch square, perfectly cut out of the fabric. Move this over to the side and grab the back piece of your project. So here is the solid black that I'm going to use on the back. So like I said, I'm using this as my new template. I am just going to lay this down onto the black, and I am going to just cut out another square. Don't worry if your lines aren't perfectly straight. Mine never are, because you're going to be hiding that anyway when you sew. So if your lines aren't perfectly straight, please don't freak out. I mean, they need to be straight, but I mean, like, if your cuts are a little jagged, that's okay. I mean, obviously your cut needs to be straight or you're going to have like a lopsided project. If you don't care too much about that, then that's fine. I try to make my stuff as symmetrical as possible because I do sell it, but if you're just making it for yourself, don't stress out too much about it. There is the back piece. So now we have the front and the back. Now all we need to do is cut out the middle pieces. The more U-Haul pads that you use, the thicker your pea pad is going to be. I always use 2. I feel like 2 lasts longer. I feel like it's thicker. I just really like 2. I feel like it's a good number. You can just use 1 if you'd like. You can use 3. Your sewing machine, if it's like mine, probably can't handle 3. My sewing machine can pretty much only handle 2. So once again, you're going to cut out a square, and I'm going to cut out 2 U-Haul squares to go in the middle of the project. Alright, so after we're done, you should have a front piece, a back piece, these can be the same if you want, and 1 or 2 U-Haul battings here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stack everything together and pin it all together. When you look at fleece, you will see a good side and a bad side. The good side is typically more pigmented. The design will be like super clear. You can usually tell, especially with printed fabrics like this with like a design on it, you will definitely be able to tell the good versus the bad. So this is the bad side. As you can see, it's a lot lighter, it's fuzzier, the design doesn't look as good. This is the bad side. With solid fleece, it's harder to tell, but you can usually tell which one is the good and the bad side. It's harder to tell with blizzard fleece, but with blizzard, it's typically like it doesn't look as fuzzy looking. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not too big of a deal if you can't tell, but you can usually tell the good and the bad side. So what you're gonna wanna do is stack it all together. So first you're going to take your U-Haul pad. Then you are going to take one of your fleeces and you are going to put it with the good side facing up. Then you're going to take your back piece and you are going to put that piece good side down. So you're gonna want both of the good sides facing each other. And then if you have another U-haul, you're going to put that U-haul on top. That is what we're going to pin together. This is where the little clips I like to use come into play. I prefer using clips. So I'm just going to clip all of the pieces together on the side. Like this, just clip all the sides together so it's all one big piece, and then we're gonna start sewing. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys the settings on my sewing machine. This is not, I wanna make this clear, this is not a sewing machine tutorial. If you don't know how to use a sewing machine or you don't know how to use your sewing machine, I recommend watching tutorials on your specific sewing machine, learning all the tools, learning how to thread your bobbins, learning all of the basics before starting with this project, because you're gonna need to know the basics. I'm not gonna teach you guys how to use a sewing machine. Every sewing machine is different, but most of them are very similar. So here is my cute little sewing machine here that I love so very much. So first of all, you're going to need some thread for the top of the sewing machine. I'm just gonna keep it green because you can't really see it anyway. But typically you make it the same color as your fabric. This will be the thread that will be showing on the top of your project. And then down here, let me turn my sewing machine on, you're going to have a bobbin in here that will also have a thread color, and they're both green right now, but typically this will be the color that is the back of your project. So for example, I could make these both black to kind of match our project here, or I could do black on the bottom, white on the top. Either way, you're going to need to thread a bobbin with a certain thread on it. So the settings that I typically use for pea pads is I make the width 2. This is just the settings I do. I make sure the position is in the middle. The lighting is so bad in here, I'm so sorry. I make the needle position in the middle. I make my tension 2 as well, sometimes 3. I make my length 2, and then I always use a straight stitch right here. There are so many different stitches that you could do. I have used a zigzag stitch before. I just prefer the straight stitch. It's just straight and to the point. So those are the settings that I use on my sewing machine. Let's go ahead and start sewing. All right, so let's go ahead and start sewing. So typically what I do is I'll just start on one random side, and I'll kind of start in the middle of the project, because when we finish, it's just easier to close off when it's in the middle and not in the corner. And that'll make sense when you start doing it. So I'm just going to open up my sewing machine and kind of just push the project in there. Some people prefer to use a walking foot when it comes to fleece. I used to use a walking foot, but I just didn't really like it. I just prefer using a regular foot with my heavy duty needle. That's just my preference. If you like using a walking foot, feel free to use it. And this is where the couple inches of extra fabric comes into play, because I usually start sewing about 1.5 inches into the project. I don't know if it's hard to see or not, I hope it isn't, but there's about 1 inch right here that I am sewing into. I'm not sewing like right at the edge, because then it probably just wouldn't sew very well. Then we're literally just gonna start sewing. I always start with the needle inside of the fabric, and then I start sewing. So my foot pedal is on the floor down here. I typically go forward, and then I reverse back to knot it, and then I keep going. One thing that I really struggled with when I first started sewing is keeping my project straight. So I recommend taking some type of visual point on your sewing machine to keep your fabric running along it, to keep the lines as straight as possible. Some people, there's like some magnetic things that you can buy to keep your project straight. I have these little lines on my sewing machine that I just follow with my eyes and keep my project aligned with that, and it helps me keep my line straight, but that's something that you might just have to practice. My first couple pea pads and liners had terrible straight lines, and that's normal. Don't make yourself feel bad because of it. When you get to the edge, you're just gonna open it up, turn it, close it, and then just keep going. So I'm at the last corner right now, and we started in the middle of the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to sew it all the way closed, because then you just close the entire project and it'll be messed up. That is something that I've done before, just not even thinking. You're going to kind of stop about 3 inches away from where we started, so we have a hole that is going to be open in the middle here. So and then I reverse it to knot it up, and then I pull it out like this, and then cut it, and we have all the ends sewed together. So the next thing that we're going to do is cut all of this extra fabric. I actually only cut the corners because I like when it's a little bit thicker on the edges. So you're just going to cut the corners. It's pretty thick, but you just cut the corners like this. Make sure not to cut what you just sewed, because then it will just open it back up, and we don't want that. So some people like to cut this extra fabric right here, like all the way until the sew line, so like they cut it like right here. I don't do that. I like when the edges of my project are thicker. What I also do is I cut down the fabric near the opening that we just did. So there's gonna be a little hole right here that we left. I just like to cut the fabric along that to make it easier for me to close the project, because there's so much fabric right here that my sewing machine personally can't really handle. I only do it of the U-Haul pad. I don't cut the extra fabric of the actual fleece here. So you can see I just kind of cut that down a little bit. That's just what I do. And then what you're gonna wanna do is stick your hand in there if you can, or stick your fingers in there, and then feel the edge of the other side, and you'll grab it with your hand, and you will start pulling the fabric through. Since we knotted up the sides, we shouldn't have any seam ripping or anything. Just be careful when you're pulling it. It may take a little bit, some effort for sure, but eventually it will all pull through. Okay, so once you pull it all through, the edges right here are gonna look all goofy. So you can take your finger, or you could take some type of like scissors or marker or anything, and you're just gonna stick it in there, and you're just going to push those corners out as much as possible to make it a point like that. It'll make it look really uniform and really nice. So it goes from looking all goofy like that to actually having some type of point to it like that. All right, so now it looks like this. So we have the hole that we left, and we need to sew that together. So what you're gonna do is you're going to fold the edges together like this. You see it'll look like that. So fold it together the best you can, and we're gonna pin it. So I'm just going to take some of my clips. This is why I like using clips the most. And we're just gonna clip it together like this, and then we're gonna go sew it together. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're just going to sew this closed. I try to keep it as close to the edge as possible. You have like a cheaper sewing machine, kind of like this one, then cutting that U-Haul will make this a lot easier. But this is typically a bit thicker because you're folding all of these like fabrics together. But this is sometimes where my needle breaks. Sometimes I usually wear glasses while I'm sewing, because sometimes I have had needles break and they fly into my face, and that's not very safe. So maybe wear glasses. And try to keep it as straight as possible, of course, if you can. Make sure to follow that line. And make sure to back stitch it to lock it all into place. And you're just going to pull it out and cut it when you're done. And here we have the seam to close it, and it's all closed, as you can see. So we're just gonna cut that extra thread here. You can stop right here if you want. I don't recommend stopping without doing an inseam, because when you put it in the washing machine, it's just gonna start coming apart like this, and it's gonna fold up all weird, and it's just gonna be weird. So I recommend having some type of inseam. And if you don't know what that means, it basically means that you're just making a seam on the inside of your project to keep it all into place and just make it look a lot nicer and more professional. Like I said, if that's something you're too nervous to do, don't even worry about it. I typically do like a 2-inch inseam, and this is where your tape measure comes into play. Some people like to do 1 inch inseaming. Some people like to do like a 1 inch and then a 2 inch and then a 3 inch and have like 3 inseams and make it all decorative and pretty. Some people, you just really gotta do what you wanna do. Make it look how you wanted to make it look. I like doing a 2 inch inseam because it makes the edges look really thick and I just like the way it looks. Just going to slide the pea pad back in here. Start at the edge. And there's a line on the side of my sewing machine right here that I always follow that I know is 2 inches. So I just have 2 inches of fabric at the side right here, 2 inches up here as well. And I'm just going to sew straight down, following this line on the side of my sewing machine to try to keep it as straight as possible. And then we're done. So you're just gonna pull it out, cut it, and then cut all of the loose thread here. So make sure to always backstitch it before you finish the project, just to knot it up and make sure that it's super, super secure. And here's a pea pad. That's how easy it was. Super, super simple. This pea pad is going to be in my 50,000 subscriber giveaway. I'm still currently making stuff. I'm gonna have multiple different prizes, and some are gonna be for guinea pigs, some will be for the owners, and it's gonna be some gift cards and some fun guinea pig stuff. So stay tuned. I still have to finish making stuff, and I do also work full-time, so doing all of this plus working full-time, I don't really have too much time to do all of it, so please stay patient with me. I will have a video specifically called 50,000 subscriber giveaway, so get ready for that. Here is the pea pad. Straight lines. This is just like a perfect pea pad for me. Like, looks great. Good inseaming. I'm very happy with it. So if you guys also want to purchase a pea pad for yourself, I do have some for sale on my website down below in all of these different fabrics that you saw over here. My next tutorials, I'm going to teach you guys how to make my tunnels, my piggy portals. In the future, I may show how to make liners. I don't really make liners too often. I'm going to show how to make toys. I'm going to show how to make cuddle sacks. There's going to be a couple different things that I'm going to show you guys how to make in this series, so make sure to subscribe to stay tuned with that. To make any size pea pad, you pretty much just follow the same rule. Even to make a liner, you just follow the same process. You make it any size that you want, cut it out, and do the same exact process, whether it's a pea pad or a liner. So there's not any difference. It's the same exact process. It's just gonna be bigger or smaller. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned. I don't know. I hope this was a good tutorial. Make sure to check out my social medias down below. Like I said, I'll have my shop down below if you guys want to buy from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.